What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping back into our series of videos looking at classes in Outriders, and in this one we're going to take a more in-depth look at the Devastator. This guy is kind of the Titan of Outriders, or the Hulk class, if you like. That's probably the best way to describe it quickly, really. So we'll have a look at the class as well as some builds we can set up with it, but before we get going, thank you very kindly to Square Enix for sponsoring the video and asking me to share Outriders with you all. If you enjoy the look of the game, be sure to follow the link in the description for more details. The demo version is available right now, and if you haven't taken a look at it, it does give us a sample of the first few hours of the game and can be downloaded for free ahead of the full launch on April the 1st, 2021. Then of course the full game will release on PC, Xbox Series X and S, as well as Xbox One, PlayStation 5 and PS4, with all of our demo progress carrying over to the full game. And so I've been working on getting a grip of the Devastator right here, and coming from the Technomancer, which we covered in our previous video, it's a pretty big change of pace because Devastator is highly aggressive. We've got perks which buff our shields for survivability, as well as a couple of devastating ground slam kind of options, so we're able to do it both immediately in front of targets, but also over a long range with Gravity Leap, where we can throw havoc at targets from a distance. And then we also have abilities to deflect bullets, and more which we'll unlock in the full game. So we'll touch on some of those abilities in a moment, but before we talk any more about them, in this build I have all rare gear at the moment. However, some of the weapons are pretty good, so firstly we have a submachine gun with bonus crit damage here, and it also has a tier 1 mod called Hot Blood, so shots pass through enemies with below 50% health and ricochet to up to 3 enemies within a 5-meter radius, and any of the enemies hit by that will be inflicted by burn, so it gives us a little bit of damage over time. But I'm also focusing especially on a rare automatic shotgun, the upgraded HLR. At first I thought it was an assault rifle, but in fact it is a shotgun, and the mod allows killing shots to regenerate 62 points of health. And having something capable at close range is a pretty big deal, since most of our abilities for Devastator push us to close quarters combat. And also, having health regen on any weapons like this is pretty useful as well. And when we look at the Intrinsic perk, of course all of the classes in the game have one, focusing around the healing mechanic, and for Devastator, the class recovers health from slain enemies that stand too close. So basically every close range kill will heal us for 24% of our maximum health, and that's why an extra boost from weapon perks is always useful, but Devastator gets an additional 15% max health and 30% max armor intrinsically, so it's a fairly tanky class. And as always we can slot 3 skills at once, so my Devastator here has Earthquake, and this is the kind of close to close mid-range slam, which deals 141 damage and interrupts enemies in front of us. It actually reaches surprisingly far, as well as doing quite a lot of damage, and the shockwave it casts moves in a straight line from where we're facing at the time, so it's pretty useful, and interrupting targets helps us kind of halt enemies, but it does also travel through cover objects, so we can smash through quite a few targets behind walls, which is pretty cool. And then my second main skill right here is Golem, and this fortifies Devastator against 65% of incoming damage for 8 seconds when activated, so it's another pretty significant buff, obviously designed for when we're rushing into groups of enemies. We can either use it as we go into an engagement, so if you want to pop it and then get a bit brave versus a mob of enemies, that totally works. Or we can hold it in reserve and then use it when the going gets tough, as it can tank a bunch of the damage and give our health a chance to recover a little bit. And then looking at Gravity Leap in more depth, we can leap into the air and strike targets from above, dealing 151 damage and interrupting enemies within a small radius of where we land. So it's really a ranged version of Earthquake in many respects. It cools down a bit slower, but has the benefit of rapid movement, and is really good for getting into spaces fast, hopping over geometry offensively, but also there are times where we can use it to escape one group of enemies and target another. So in a way, both Trickster and Devastator have this way of changing engagements, not only offensively, but as a movement mode in itself. And I feel like Trickster and Devastator are a brilliant pair to push forward into enemies, with the support of either Pyromancers or Technomancers. Then of course in the full game, we'll eventually unlock access to all 8 main character class skills. The one we aren't using in this gameplay at least is Reflect Bullets, and it creates a barrier that captures enemy projectiles and accumulates damage. Then after 10 seconds, the accumulated damage is reflected back to enemies. On top of this, if enemies melee us in the time where the barrier is up, they'll actually end up damaging themselves, so it's another pretty good option. And so is some of those things working together, we've got to be jumping into the action in a fairly confident way. I really enjoy the loop of reaching encounter spaces, targeting a group with Gravity Leap. It does give us a pretty good jump on enemies, and also we can kind of pick where we want to engage inside of a space. And from there, I'll kind of switch between shotgun and SMG depending on range. And of course, we are getting a few bonuses from the armor mods we've got equipped as well. So this setup is leaning very heavily into Earthquake mods, partially because it's really strong, but also because these are simply the best mods and pieces of gear that I've got in the current setup. And on the headgear, we're rocking Bloodshock. This inflicts bleeds on enemies damaged by Earthquake, And at our current level, I've found it to be pretty useful at finishing lower tier enemies off from the initial slam. My upper armor has extra quake, and this is huge, allowing us to activate Earthquake twice before triggering cooldown. And for tanky targets or even multiple targets, this just gives us more, right? There are loads of times where we can slam back to back. And again, because those kills are actually giving us health, having more activations increases our survivability in multiple ways. And when we do that, the armor boost mod is also significant because we're getting 278 armor for each enemy affected by Earthquake. That effect lasts for 10 seconds and stacks up to 10 times, so we really do get rewarded for hitting multiple targets there. And again, being able to trigger it twice just gives us more chances of getting those stacks. So we've got a couple of perks synergizing with each other. We're also using a mod called Ground Crush to get an additional 65 points of base damage for that. And then finally for Golem, which of course buffs our shields for a bit, when the skill is up, we've got a bonus that spawns radial impulses that inflict bleed on enemies within 6 meters. So while we buff ourselves, we're also hitting targets in close range with a bit more damage over time, which is definitely not a bad freebie and basically always does work for us when we have Golem active. Okay, so we're jumping back in to kill the captain right here. And we're gonna, what we're gonna do, dive right in on these guys. There we go. Lost my marker for a second, but I do like how the ground slam, if that's what we want to call it, just kind of cuts through cover and stuff. It is pretty strong. There are totally times where I just want to move back like this so I can do that again and surprise these dudes. Do love this full auto shotgun as well, but I swear I burn through ammo using it. And it does take a second to reload as well right here, so you got to be kind of careful if you're using it in big groups of enemies for sure. Alright, so we're going to try and sprint all the way out, catch some of these guys. I do like being able to jump over this little kind of canyon-y, river-y thing, whatever we're going to call it. I'm going to try and focus on taking more of the enemies out before I go after the captain right here. Couple of ground slams will do the job. Teleport up behind the snipers right here, and that takes them straight out. I do love how strong the Devastator is right here. It's absolutely awesome. Get some of these guys burning maybe. Another ground slam. There we go. I love setting all the enemies on fire when you make a kill with this weapon. Okay, can we get out of here? Actually using that offensive ability to try and get out of the way of trouble sometimes as well. Alright, and it's just the captain. I haven't even popped my my shields and everything just yet. Or done any damage with the shotgun. This thing does a ton of damage, but it just burns through ammo. Keeping him stunned. And there we go, the captain's out. Oh wow, we had another enemy down here as well. We'll do the grand finish. There we go. So we actually got a new Gravity Leap mod on these boots. Heal for 100% of damage dealt. And if your target dies, heal for 200% damage dealt. Actually, that could be pretty good. Currently, we've got the Golem mod, so when the skill's active, we're spawning those impulses that inflict bleed on enemies. So some stuff to play around with right there. And again, once we start unlocking more of the class trees with points right here, I think things are going to get pretty broken for this character. As I was saying with that intrinsic bonus, as the Devastator, we recover health from slain enemies that stand in too close. And all those close range kills heal us by 24% of our maximum health, and then we get an additional 15% of maximum health, and an armor increase of 30%. It makes a lot of sense that this class will get Shotgun Master as well, increasing shotgun weapon damage by 15%. And the drop chances of shotguns. You'll recognize that from the previous video with Trickster and Technomancer. And then as always, there are other really good large nodes, so Stone Circle extends the distance considered to be close range by an additional 4 meters. That's actually fairly significant, because it's going to be affecting quite a few perks. We can increase firepower by 15% of our anomaly power. Perks like Outrider Commander, increasing all healing by 20% and shield by 20% for you and allies. So some of those flat bonuses are really strong. And then we've got Champion, and using protection skills increases weapon damage by 45% for 10 seconds. So that's going to include stuff like Golem. And when an enemy dies in close range, 20% of their armor will be transferred to you for 10 seconds. So stuff like that's going to reward making kills consistently and fairly quickly, right? Then eventually really huge bonuses like this, where we can increase seismic skill base damage by 15%. So as always, that's just a quick preview of some of those bonuses that we're going to get via the skill trees, and again, we'll be unlocking 30 class points throughout the course of the game. Those can be used to assign these bonuses, but of course we can always reset the tree at any time as well. But for now, guys, there's a pretty decent first look at the Devastator in Outriders. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the rest of the locked abilities and skills at launch, but of course for the demo, I should mention again that we get 6 character slots in the game, so it's fairly easy to experiment with them all and to get them started now in the demo if you like the look of the game, since that progress will carry over to launch. And so give us your experiences with Devastator down in the comments section, and also be sure to follow the link in the description for more info on the full game. Once again, thanks to Square Enix for sponsoring the video, and I'd also like to know generally what you guys think of Outriders in the comments section. But for now, thank you as always for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the video, a like rating down below very much helps us out. But otherwise, thanks for watching guys, and I hope you have an awesome day.